My name is Neil Ide. I'm the product manager for MyEclipse for Spring. And joining me will be Jack Kennedy, who's one of the founders of Skyway Software, as well as the Vice President of Product Delivery at Skyway Software. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. If you're having a hard time seeing my window during the presentation, please use the zoom functionality. That's the bottom right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar window so that you can adjust how my screen fits into your screen. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the question and answer box that's in the GoToWebinar dashboard. We will have people answering those questions live during the webinar, and we'll also answer some of those questions at the end of the webinar as well. So if you attended any of the previous MyEclipse for Spring webinars, you're probably familiar with our reputation of packing a lot of content in, and I think we're going to live up to that reputation with this webinar. We appreciate you investing an hour of your day. We respect your time, and we want you to get the most out of this webinar. But more importantly, we also want you to get the most out of MyEclipse for Spring. And we hope that this Bootcamp webinar gives you a really good jump start. The agenda is very ambitious, so we're going to go through a lot of features very quickly, and I'm pretty confident we can get through all of it. As with previous webinars, we will have a webinar available for replay within a few days, so you'll be able to watch this webinar again at your own pace. And if you feel so inclined, you can share it with colleagues or anyone that you know that may have missed this webinar. The agenda is organized to start with a brief review of the MyEclipse for Spring code generation functions, and then we'll dive into, first, the general purpose Spring tools, and then we'll make our way into the more specialized Spring tools. So what is MyEclipse for Spring? MyEclipse for Spring is a joint product from Tech and Skyway Software, and it's a collection of the best Eclipse-powered development tools for Spring developers. It includes Spring-specific editors, wizards, an integrated Spring sandbox, an extensive set of code generation functions, project bootstrapping, and rich annotation editors. The bottom line is that MyEclipse for Spring is the best IDE for Spring development. There isn't any other IDE on the market that packs in as many Spring development tools, and they're all available in one bundle. This next slide shows you, MyEclipse for Spring has a lot of functionality. With this slide, the goal of this slide is really to show you the functionality that is focused on Spring application development. So I'm going to actually show you some additional functions as well that are more general purpose tools, but this really shows you all the tools that are available, that are Spring specific in MyEclipse for Spring. The features fall into three feature sets. There's tools for generating software components and bootstrapping projects. There's tools for supporting editing code and Spring configuration files. And then there's tools for building, running, and debugging Spring applications. All these three feature sets share the same goal, which is to help Spring developers produce quality Spring applications in a high productivity environment. So the first thing we're going to do is cover code generation. So code generation has been covered extensively in previous MyEclipse for Spring webinars and screencasts. But we're going to review it real briefly. With MyEclipse for Spring, you can generate a variety of software components from existing artifacts. And as you can see from this slide, there are many groups of software components that can be generated. These software components are generated from artifacts that you would already have, which might include database tables, which would be reverse engineered, or Java beans, or POJOs, or JPA entities that you might already have for your project. And then what you can do is you can combine these software component groups to generate complete, ready-to-run applications. And some common use cases for this is general Spring Web application development, learning Spring or learning new web technologies like GWT or Flex or JSF, prototyping Spring applications, or application modernization efforts where you're migrating an existing application to Spring. So we're not going to go through the whole scaffolding process or the whole code generation process in this particular webinar, but what I do want to do is show you what actually gets generated. So under normal situations, someone would actually generate, the common layers of the application and then the specific front end that they're interested in. But for this review, I'm actually going to show you a project where I actually selected everything to be generated. So let's look at that real quick. So what I have here is basically the running application, and what I did is I generated this from some of the database tables that come with the Derby database that's included with MyEclipse for Spring. And what we see here is this dashboard really is a way for you to be able to navigate to the different parts that were generated and that are actually running for you. And it takes probably 2 or 3 minutes for you to actually generate all of these on your own within your own instance of MyEclipse for Spring. And what you see here is that I can go to Spring MVC, and actually I also did Spring Security in here, so I'm going to quickly log in. And then I can actually go in and see data, and I can navigate down and see related entities. That's an example. This is an example of the Spring MVC front-end implementation. If I go to the web flow, I can take a look at, I'll take a look at a different entity. The application looks very similar to the Spring MVC. The only difference is that it's actually implemented using the Spring Webflow framework rather than Spring MVC. For Adobe Flex, we can go in and take a look at, we'll take a look at View Employees. Here I'm showing you an entire front-end, Adobe Flex front-end application that was generated. And it gives me all the screens to be able to manage all of the related entities. And then I also have the same thing for Java server faces. And once again, it's the same type of CRUD functionality, but they are all different implementations using different technologies. And then finally, the Google Web Toolkit, which is the ability to generate the GWT front end that's using the back end application. And then the iPhone really is a version that has actually been skinned to look like an iPhone application. So if I were to go ahead and navigate to this URL with an iPhone, you'd be able to see kind of the same application with an interface that's optimized for the iPhone. So that's a high-level review of kind of what are all the different types of things that you can actually generate with MyEclipse for Spring. And so just from within a few minutes, from a few database tables, I have the ability of generating a whole bunch of stuff. Code generation really has the potential to really accelerate application development, and the value proposition is really simple. The more software components you can generate, the less code you have to write by hand. And here's a secret. Since the generated code reflects best practices, doesn't introduce any additional runtime dependencies, and looks exactly like it was written by hand, nobody needs to know that the code was generated. And if I had to pick the one thing that differentiates a MyEclipse for Spring expert from a beginner, is that the expert's approach to Spring application development is to use code generation as extensively as possible. And once they've squeezed everything they can out of the code generation, then they will use the additional development tools for customizing the generated software components or creating entirely new software components. With that said, we won't be spending much more time talking about scaffolding in this webinar. This topic has been covered many times in previous webinars and on many of our screencasts on our YouTube channel. If you're interested in more details on scaffolding, links to the older webinars and screencasts will be provided at the end of this webinar.